So the story is, it actually is a sort of sad story, but it has a happy ending, so it's easy for me to tell. My wife, this was in 2008, was diagnosed with breast cancer. She's totally fine now, which is good. But at the time I couldn't sleep. I have 2 kids. They were littler then, now they're 13 and 7. So I was just up late every night worrying. And Night of the Living Dead happened to be on TV, and I grew up loving that movie.
An experience in shock, more shattering than your strangest nightmare. Night of the Living Dead.
And it's always on. It's always on some station because it's an eminent domain movie. So I started watching it, and I was thinking, you know, they're sick. They're not just ghouls stumbling around in this graveyard and later in this house. They're ill with something. And in fact, I could even start to say what they're ill with. And because I couldn't sleep, and because I could solve the zombie problem, because they're not real, and I couldn't solve my wife's cancer, somebody else had to do that for me, I sat down and wrote a fake medical paper about zombies. And then that got sort of spread around the internet. I got asked to speak in a movie theater before a showing of Night of the Living Dead, again because it's eminent domain. I called Romero up right before the talk and said, I've never met you. You want to talk sometime? And he said, sure. So we became friends. And one thing kind of led to another after that.
Welcome to a night of total terror. Night of the Living Dead. The dead.
And especially as a psychiatrist, I've been thinking a lot about why folks like zombies. And everyone's going to have their own answer. To me, there's been some studies, first of all, just as background, that show that during times of economic stress, zombie movies tend to get more popular. So they tend to be representations of kind of overall stress of the system not holding, of the infrastructure breaking down. I think also we're more and more disconnected as a culture. I mean, you and I have the luxury of talking to each other directly, but we could maybe talk on email someday. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the more we talk in email in place of talking to each other, I know this sounds a little bit preachy, I think we lose a little something. And so we become kind of more and more like those zombies. Like people ask, why do we have these zombie walks? Which is kind of funny, like why would you dress up like a dead person and walk around? Well, no one texts on a zombie walk. No one's looking at their phones. People are talking to each other. And to me, I think there's a kind of desire to get back together, a little bit of a desire to go off the grid. And you can't be any more off the grid than a zombie is.
The dead whose haunted souls hunt the living. The living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures.
There's, well, people always ask what's your favorite zombie movie, which is a little bit different, and I always say Dawn of the Dead, because that, I think, hits all of the sort of, all of the important points, the social commentary, the humans turning on each other, the scariness, the sort of requisite gore, which makes it a little bit hard to watch, but also it's supposed to be hard to watch. The question I get asked most often, not about the movies, but about zombies themselves, is after I tell them that zombies aren't real, because that's usually their first question, is they'll say, what's your zombie survival plan? What's your plan? What will you do? And I mean, I don't have a lot of good skills. If there happened to be a zombie outbreak, I can barely hang a picture. So the idea that I could somehow arm up and set my perimeter and sort of keep my family safe, I don't think I could do any of that. So the closest I've come to an answer is, you know, I used to teach high school English. I was a high school English teacher. And I loved the Odyssey. And Homer was blind. He was blind during this incredibly barbaric time, and then somehow he managed to stay alive by wandering from, you know, house to house and telling stories. And he was smart enough not to let the story end, because if it ended, they'd probably kill him. So I would take my family on the road, and I would tell them stories, and hopefully people would like them and maybe feed us some baked beans, and then we'd go on to the next house.